Oh, Gran. Gran is the protagonist, the box art character, the stupidly strong but straightforward kind of character. You're not going to find any wild setups, full screen normals, or demon flips here. Instead, you're going to get a character that's powerful with fundamentals, and being able to swap rapidly between the Shoto zoning game and going in with great pressure. Gran is largely considered one of the strongest characters in the game, and he's also one of the best characters to learn if you're new to the game or fighting games in general. My name is Raidhyn, and this is the Beginner's Guide to Gran. Alright, so before we dive into it, I want to give a quick shout out to East Coast Throwdown for sponsoring this video. East Coast Throwdown is one of the few FTC tournaments I'm planning to attend this year, but we'll talk more about that at the end of the video. In this guide, we'll be going over Gran specials, notable buttons, basic combos, and overall game plan so you actually know how to play the character. Since almost every attack in Granblue is important and has its uses, I highly recommend watching each section instead of being scummy and skipping to the combos and trying to do those in a match, because that never works out really well. So, to kick things off, let's talk about Gran specials. So, Gran's projectile is a traditional fireball with 3 variations. The light version sends a fireball straight forward. Like all projectiles, it can be blocked or spot dodged. This move is not safe on block or hit and should not be used at close range. Use this for standard fast zoning instead. Now, the medium version of this move is far more interesting because it includes a sword slash before shooting a projectile. The first slash will clash with some other moves and projectiles before sending the fireball second, which makes it really good in a lot of matchups. Do be aware it has a small gap between the sword slash and the fireball, which some characters can DP through. However, if people are mashing, they will be punished with a counter hit. It's really good for extra damage as a combo ender for a frame trap against mashers and when you really need a move with extra active frames. This move is pretty safe on block, but will cause you to give up your turn if it's used at close range and the opponent blocks it. The heavy version, however, is a little different. This projectile is all around one of Gran's most useful moves. It's plus on block, has great corner carry mid-screen, it combos in the corner, and lets you keep up pressure even if your opponent blocks it. Like other EX versions of projectiles, because it is multi-hit, it will eat through other single projectile moves, and you can use it to win around with chip damage if you've actually got your opponent that level of health. It's an all-around great tool in Gran's kit, and I often use this at the end of block strings just so that I can keep the pressure going if they block, and if they're caught off guard, well, I get the corner carry. Really good move. Next up, we're going to talk about Gran's Tatsu, or Das Boot, or the thing that you've probably been hearing about for why Gran is so good. Light version of this move, instead of the boot, you get a sword slash. If it connects, you can follow it up with the M version of the move, the medium version, 214M for damage and corner carry. This move is pretty fast and it's fairly difficult to react to, and it also reaches farther than your longest normal buttons, so it can be used in neutral. Now, let's go and talk about the medium version of this move, which is the one that's really interesting. This version is unsafe, safe, or plus on block depending on the range at which you start the attack. In order to make this move plus on block, you need to be at the very maximum range at which it will hit, not so far away that it will whiff, but not so close that you're just safe and not plus. This move can be really scary if you get it at just the right range, because then you can follow up with a button, and in a lot of cases, people are afraid to press buttons if they block this because they're not sure if we're plus or not. It's a very, very good move, and mastering the move of this at max range is key to playing Gran and making your opponents be very afraid. Now, be aware it will lose to projectiles and will be counter hit on startup against characters like Fairy who have long range normals. As for the heavy version of this move, it has identical properties to the medium version, except it's a little faster, recovers slightly faster, and it causes a wall bounce in the corner, making it an extender for combos. Also, the heavy version has slightly faster startup, so it allows it to connect in some combos where the medium version might not. Next up, let's talk about Rising Sword. This is Gran's standard invincible reversal move, which is also commonly referred to as Dragon Punch, or DP for short, or sometimes Shori or Shoryuken, like in Street Fighter games. Use this when the other guy won't stop pressing buttons, or if they're trying to pressure you and you want to call them out. Now, as with all DPs in this game and all fighting games, these are very unsafe on block and can be punished. So just know that it's good if the other person is pressing buttons, but if they think you're going to DP and you DP into them, you're going to eat a pretty hard punish. Alright, so the light version of this move is also the one that you'll get using the shortcut. As with all shortcuts in Granblue, you're going to get the light version of the attack. Now, this version is -17 on block according to current frame data, but surprisingly most people don't punish it properly because of the amount of pushback it has. The medium version, moving on, has a bigger hitbox and better damage than its light counterpart, so this is what you're going to want to use for maximum damage at the end of combos. It actually does more damage than the Fireball medium version or the Boot, so do use this as your combo ender if you're just trying to get some extra damage. As for the EX version, this does 2 DPs because clearly 2 of these are better than 1. Do note that this ender will drop in the corner if you go over the combo counter, and it's usually better to just finish with the medium version so that DP is still available right away and you don't suffer the cooldown limit. Unlike the other EX moves that you have, this doesn't give you any kind of wall bounce or combo extension, so if you do use this, it's going to be at the end of a combo. Alright, next up, let's talk about Gran's supers, or as they're referred to in Granblue, Skybound and Super Skybound arts. So, his Skybound art is a forward thrust of his sword. It is not safe on block and can definitely be punished. It does make for a very good anti-air if you call out somebody's jump-in, which is pretty great. It confirms off of literally any normal that Gran has. You can go into Skybound art, which makes it really good for quick damage conversions off like a stray counter hit. And it does have really solid damage. Now, his Super Skybound art is a sword thrust that adds some projectiles to the end of it. It's not exactly plus on block, but it's really safe thanks to its pushback. It has decent chip if it's blocked, and just like all other Super Skybound arts, the manual input, so 2 quarter circle forwards and heavy, extends the sweet spot range of the attack. So there are some combos where you do need to do the manual input for this. You can't shortcut it. That's okay. If you're having trouble with that input, just practice it and you'll make it work. This move, it's nice and flashy, and similar to the Skybound art, it does convert over on top of almost any button, and it does make a good anti-air. So you can use this, you can basically use either one, both in similar situations, and obviously the super version is going to add a bit more damage. Alright, next up, let's go over Gran's unique moves and notable attacks. Really quick, if you like this content so far and want more Granblue versus guides like this one, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell and all that stuff. Helps with my motivation to actually make these things. Alright, that said, let's look at his buttons, starting off with his unique attack. 5U, or his unique attack, is a 5-stage slash attack that gains charges the longer you hold down the button. So you'll see a little flare up and a change of color every time you gain a new level of charge. At level 5, it gains invulnerability and will cause a wall bounce in the corner. Holding the U button to charge and pressing any other attack button while charging will cause you to cancel the charge and be able to block again. Typically, this is used in corner combos for maximum damage or last-ditch poke attempts since it outdistances all of his other buttons. It does have a very long startup at 22 frames, however, so be careful if you decide to use this in neutral, as you can get hit out of the start of it. If your opponent has been overly patient and refuses to approach you, just charge this up and I promise you they'll come running at your face. Or they won't and you'll get some charge for free. Next up, let's talk about 2U, or Gran's low sweep, which is really good. This thing can be confirmed into any special. It low profiles many attacks and projectiles in the game. On block, it's unsafe, but you can special cancel it into 214L or 236M to make it safe. You will want to use this to go counter hit fishing, and performing this move at max distance out of run is something that can be very helpful for approaching because of its low profile properties. So jumping unique, or jump U, is a great jump-in option for Gran. It can be used to cross up and is also used during his safe jumps. Do be aware that if you start the move at the wrong time, i.e. too high, there is a gap between when the opponent blocks and when you can first attack in a block string, so watch your timing. Far 5M and 5H are Gran's farthest reaching normals, with only a few slight differences. 5M is very fast and reaches just slightly farther than 5H. 5H is a bit slower but has more active frames, meaning it can be easier to land in some situations. Regardless of which you prefer to use, you'll be using these moves in similar situations, to whiff punish or fish for counter hits, and both are very good at what they do. Alright, next up we're going to talk about 2L, or Crouching Light. This is your plus on block low, one of Gran's best tools and why his pressure feels really, really strong. You can combine this with micro dashes to reset pressure. It can link into standing light for hit, and you can also just use it to go into overhead. You can 2L and then run up and throw. Like, just use your imagination. You're going to be using this move a lot. Next up, we've got Crouching Medium. This is plus on block and has more distance than Crouching Light, but isn't so great with Micro Dash. You can use this a lot, and things like Crouching Medium into the Crouching Unique Sweep is a solid counter hit trap. It can also be used on knockdowns to time Oki, but that's a bit more advanced, and we'll probably talk about that in another video. And finally, we've got Crouching Heavy, or 2H, which is Gran's anti-air. It's important to get used to the timing for this, since it's going to be different for each character you're fighting based on their approach and their jump speed. Off a counter hit of Crouching Heavy, you can land a far heavy slash in some situations, but the most consistent is to go for a whiff sword slash, or 214L, and then go into a heavy auto combo for good mid-screen anti-air damage. And we'll be showing that off in the next section where we talk about combos. Alright, so finally the good stuff. We're going to go over Gran's B&B combos, or bread and butter combos. I am going to kind of talk a little bit about combo theory while we demonstrate a lot of the combos on screen. Basically, mid-screen, your goal should always be to push your opponent to the corner. So no matter how you get your first hit, it's totally fine to go into an auto combo of any variety, and then just make sure that you're ending with either the boot, the medium version if you don't want to spend the meter, or if you do want to spend meter for extra corner carry, you can use the heavy version of either the boot or the projectile. So mid-screen, you always want to be ending your combos in something that has that corner carry, because once you've got an opponent in the corner with their back to the wall, that's where you really open up all of your damaging options, and that's where you want to have your opponent stuck. And this is true for not just Gran, but any character in Granblue, really. Now, probably one of the trickier combos that you're going to have to learn as Gran is his Crouching Light Confirm, which is probably the trickiest out of all of them, especially if you're new to fighting games. It's going to take a little bit of practice, but do spend some time in the lab with these, get used to it. You want to at least get the muscle memory for how it feels. And, you know, these are not his most optimal combos. I haven't included anything that has, like, oh, you know, level 5 charge, unique attack right in the middle of this. But these are pretty easy to do. I mean, I can do them, so pretty easy. And they're all very consistent. They're going to work. They're going to work in the corner. They're going to work against every character in the game, and you will always be able to get the damage that you need. So take these. I've got the notation for all of these combos written in the description below, so if you want to copy paste those out and, you know, stick them in a notepad document like I do, take them to the training room, practice them up, and at least get the basics down. All right, and finally, now that we've gone over all of Gran's tools and what his combos look like, let's talk about his game plan. As Gran in this roster, you're basically the more aggressive Shoto. If you want to play a more patient, more footsies-oriented character, you can go switch to Katarina, who's also amazing. But for Gran, the thing that makes him unique is the fact that he can swap rapidly between playing that patient zoning, I'm trying to get you to jump in at me so I can get an anti-air or a DP when you jump, and going in and applying ridiculous pressure. And Gran's ability to swap between those two play styles of like patient zoning and baiting versus like going in and going nuts is a big part of the reason why I've been having so much fun with this character. I love being able to play characters that have versatile play styles depending on what type of opponent you've got, what the matchup is like. You can play differently, you can play however you need to in order to win. Generally, what you want to do is play patient and neutral using fireballs to force jump-ins that you can anti-air. Poke occasionally with 5M or 5H and then get in safe with the boot, and then establish pressure using all of those crouching normals that we talked about that are plus. Now, while playing against your opponent, you're going to need to mix up what you're doing based on how they react to you, and this is really important, and this is why we talked about why Gran is a very fundamentals-oriented character. You're going to have to change what you're doing based on how your opponent plays. If they don't ever jump at you, you're going to have more freedom to position yourself for just the right range of boot. If they do jump a lot, then you can position yourself for anti-airs. Now, remember, as you're doing all of this, that Gran isn't going to be able to out-poke and out-footsie a lot of characters in the roster. He can play footsies, but largely has to rely on fireballs at a distance that's outside of the range of his normals. Now, what he does lack in good pokes, he makes up for in pressure at close range like we talked about, so just keep that in mind. If you're getting frustrated because you're getting walled out, just know that once you get in, you've got all of those ways to put pressure on the opponent, keep him in the corner, keep him guessing, and eventually wear them down. Finally, like that last reminder, even though we talked about this in the super section, his Skybound arts can combo after almost any hit, including anti-airs, and you don't always need a full combo to close out the match. Sometimes a single stray hit into a Skybound art is gonna do it for you. So just know like that Gran has a lot of turnaround potential because, you know, his conversions are really good, his damage is really good. He doesn't need the perfect starter in order to rack up a lot of damage on his opponent. So yeah, that's the plan. That's the Gran plan. Yeah, I said it. Alright everybody, I hope this video has been helpful for those of you looking to play Gran and get deeper into Granblue Fantasy Versus. I personally have been having way too much fun with this game, and I'm super excited to be making guides again. So if you like this video, a like would be super appreciated and helps out the channel a ton. Now, before we go, I do want to talk a little bit more about East Coast Throwdown. Full disclosure, I am friends with some of the folks who organize it, and they were kind enough to sponsor this video. And I just wanted to express two things. One is that if you want a tournament that takes place in the fall, they haven't announced the dates yet for 2020, but it's typically in October. And if you want a tournament that takes place just north of New York City on the East Coast, and you're like me and you like those nice East Coast flight prices, definitely check out East Coast Throwdown. It is definitely the most heavy metal of all FGC tournaments that exists. The last couple of years, they've been sponsored by Roadrunner Records, which is really, really sick. So I'm really excited about being able to head out there this year. And if you're looking for a fighting game tournament to go to, maybe it's your first time out, maybe you're not quite ready to jump into Evo, maybe you want more time in the year to practice, whatever it is, East Coast Throwdown is definitely a good option, and I'm going to be there, so that will be great. Anyway, if you want more Granblue Versus guides on any other characters or topics, do let me know in the comments below, or hit me up on Twitter at twitter.com/Raidhyn, just like the name of the channel, and look forward to more stuff I'll be putting out on Granblue Versus soon. Thanks everybody for watching. I'll see you next time.